Hello everyone, it's Caroline here, and this is the first in a whole series of lessons we're going to do on Germany in the 1920s or the 1930s. So if you are doing AQA, there are a couple of lessons that you need to do in front of this. So your course starts a little bit sooner, and I will get those videos up for you as soon as I can. But for everyone who is doing Germany in the 20s and 30s, so whether you're AQA or EdExcel, these lessons here will come up on your exam. So we're going to start off looking at the impact of World War One on Germany. So by the end of the lesson, you'll be able to explain the impact of the First World War on Germany. And it is going to be a terrible impact. So World War One is awful for every country that's involved, but it is going to be particularly tough on Germany and the German people. And that's shown here in this picture. So this is an image of an anti-war rally that comes out just after the First World War. And you can just see just how many German people have turned out. And those banners, what they're saying in German is never again war. So from this picture, we can see just what a negative impact World War One had on Germany. So let's look at why. Why was it just so awful for the German people? So one of the big reasons was the alliances that they fall into. So Germany is fighting against fighting alongside Austria-Hungary and Italy. So those are the countries that are in red, and they're fighting against Britain, France, Russia, and from 1917, America. So more on America for the moment. But if you look at that picture on the board, it just shows clearly what a dreadful position Germany is in. So Austria-Hungary and Italy aren't necessarily the strongest allies out there. Germany really is taking the brunt of that particular alliance, the brunt of what's doing the majority of the fighting. And we can see that Germany's got Russia on one side and France on the other. And that's going to cause huge issues for Germany. They have to split their forces in two. They need half in the east fighting Russia. They need the other half in the west fighting France. So they are actually going to do a really good job. And this becomes super important later on. For most of World War One, Germany are winning. So they do a fantastic job. They manage to defeat Russia, and that means they can have all of their army moved into France. And with the trench warfare in France and Belgium, Germany has the easier time of it because they've dug their trenches on enemy land, so they're occupying enemy land. All they have to do is sit there for the war. France and Britain have the much harder job. They have to get Germany out of those countries. So the trench warfare, Germany sat there defending, Britain and France trying to kick them out of France and Belgium. So Germany they're up against it. They've got a difficult job with their alliances, but they actually do a really good job for most of World War One. And that's going to become a problem later on because the German people are hearing, we're winning the war, we're winning the war. Then all of a sudden, we've lost. So the war's over and we were the losers. So the German people, that's really suspicious. They're like, hang on a minute. Like last month we were winning this war and now we've given in. Like, what has happened? More on that in a bit. So the big thing that really makes the difference for Germany, America's entry into the war. And what that means is an endless supply of American soldiers. So America, huge country, huge population. And it just means that for Germany, the minute that America lands on the soil of France and Belgium, they're going to be defeated. So Germany does a last ditch push to try and win the war before American soldiers land. It fails. And then that is the end for Germany. So lots of casualties, lots of defeats for the Germans in 1918. And then what was incredibly difficult for everyone sort of back home as well. So it wasn't just soldiers that were affected in World War One. People in Germany had a dreadful time of it. And it's because of something called the British Naval Blockade. So that's a really fancy term for blocking someone's ports so they can't get food in and out. So if you look at the map that's on the screen, actually very little of Germany is on the sea and has access to ports. So the British found it quite easy to block off those ports. You can see where the pink shaded area is. All of that was mined. So they were making sure ships weren't going in and out. And what that meant is Germany couldn't trade food. So the German people are starving. So it isn't just the soldiers in the trenches that are suffering, it's the women, the children, the older men back home are starving as well. So it was just a dreadful, dreadful time for Germany. So this leads, not surprisingly, to revolution in Germany. The German people have had enough. They've had enough with how the country's being run. So we think over 750,000 people died due to those food shortages. So that's a huge amount. 750,000 died due to food shortages. On top of that, 2 million German soldiers die. And over 4 million were wounded. And when I say wounded, I don't mean like they had a cut. I mean like they lost arms, they lost legs. They were really badly injured. So there's 6 million soldiers either dead or seriously wounded. Workers in Munich have had enough. So Munich's a city in Germany. We're going to come back to it time and time again. They declare a general strike and said that they're separate from the rest of Germany. They're going to set up their own little area. And Germany's government debt trebled. So it times by 3. So Germany at the end of World War One is in an absolute mess. So it all leads to change. And this chap here that we've got the picture of, this is the leader of Germany during World War One. So he's given the title Kaiser, which just means emperor. So Emperor Wilhelm II. And there he is with his very fantastic moustache. Sadly for Wilhelm and for Germany, the moustache is the only thing that's fantastic about him. As a leader, he is not good at all. Far too confident. He's massively overconfident. He won't listen to advice. And he is one of the leading causes of World War One, his attitude. He's not the only one, but he is up there. So he is in charge. The country's out of control, and the Allies decide to be a bit manipulative. So Germany wants peace, and Britain and France are like, okay, we will discuss peace, but only with a leader that's been elected. So someone who has been voted in. So as emperor, he was not voted for. His father was emperor before him. When his father died, he inherits the role. So it's a way of the sort of British saying to Germany, get rid of the emperor and then we'll talk about peace. So even the army who traditionally supported the Kaiser, they couldn't support him. So he abdicates or gives up the throne. So he clings on for as long as he can. The war has got to come to an end. The Allies are refusing to deal with him. So Germany says to him, you've got to go. So 9th of November 1918, the Kaiser goes. He is going to be replaced by a government. So that ends, like we enter into the next stage. And that government's going to be replaced by Hitler. So throughout the course, there's 3 different leaders. We start off with the Kaiser, then we're going to have the government that replaces him, and then we're going to end up with Hitler. So this is the end of the Kaiser. So 9th of November 1918. And in comes this chap. So People in the German government then announced Germany is a republic. So again, this is something that's really straightforward, but it's just got a fancy name. So a country where the leader gets voted in an election by the ordinary people going out and casting their vote, that's a republic. And that's what Germany's going to become. So countries where the leaders get voted in. Now, we're really lucky. We live in a successful democracy. So, not saying it's perfect, but we've seen that democracy in general works really well. What we've got to remember for the German people at the time, this is new. All they've known so far is Kaiser. So, they've had emperors, and they're really quite suspicious of democracy. And what's going to happen when everything goes wrong due to other reasons, democracy is going to get the blame. So they're going to be like, well, we tried a democracy and look, the country's in a mess. It must mean that democracy doesn't work. So just keep that in the back of your mind. So the new chancellor who comes in, a bit like a prime minister, was a man called Frederick Ebert. And there he is. So Ebert's a member of quite a moderate party, the Social Democrat Party, and he signs the armistice, the ceasefire. So he signs the agreement which ends the fighting of World War One on the 11th of November 1918. So that is why on the 11th of November every year we have like the minute silence or the 2 minute silence because it marks the end of the fighting of World War One. So for Germany, it was signed by Ebert. So it's assumed by Germany that all states would be involved in the peace process. So as far as Germany is concerned, they've all agreed to end the fighting. Now they're going to agree a peace process. They're not seeing it as we've lost the war, you're going to tell us what to do, which is understandable. So Germany is going to go into the peace process thinking that they're all just going to sit down and negotiate. The Allies have other ideas. We're going to see that in lesson 3 on the Treaty of Versailles. So what I want you to do now is just think to yourself, why was there unrest in Germany in late 1918? Why would Germany in 1918 be a terrible place to be living? What makes the emperor abdicate? Remember, abdicate just means give up the throne in November 1918. And then the last one, this is your interpretation. What do you think the biggest impact of World War One on Germany was? What was, of all those things, what was going to be the big one? Now, the beauty of this, it's your interpretation, it's your opinion. You cannot get it wrong. You just need to be able to justify why. So we're practicing writing our conclusions there. So, in your opinion, what's the biggest impact? Make sure you justify your answer.